Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. Our guest tonight is Brett Gauger, a young man who I've known for quite some time. Brett, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Anthony.
Well, Brett, I just got a message from your dad on LinkedIn that I'm going to be talking to him on Friday. Your dad worked in HR for a while, is that correct?
Yes. So most of his career, about over 44 years.
All right, so what's your dad doing now? Just so I have a little bit of a preview of the conversation on Friday.
Yeah, it's kind of a decompressed mode right now. He's been enjoying a lot of home improvement projects and at the same time, just getting some well-deserved rest.
All right. Well, I did see somewhere on social media, I don't know if it was your brother, but somebody posted a picture of your dad. I think he was inside the house, and there was a giant inflatable snowman.
Oh.
So tell me a little bit about that. What was going on?
So that rooted from a viral video that's going around currently on Instagram. It's from Instagram Reels. A person actually purchased a 20-foot tall inflatable snowman. So I showed my parents that, and I looked it up, and it was just like the skeleton a few months ago that came out that it created this huge virality. So we found the 20-foot snowman. We're like, you know what? The 20-foot snowman will probably be taller than our house is. So we're like, let's go ahead and switch it down to the 12-foot. So we decided to get the 12-foot snowman, and it's been a hoot because we actually inflated it inside to kind of get an idea of how big it really is. And as you can see in the photo, it was quite the extraordinary size. So it was hilarious to hear that, and then my dad to tell us stories about how he actually wanted to test it out outside first. So before putting the stakes in, he wanted to make sure how big it would be outside. He was actually wrangling a 12-foot snowman in the middle of the day. So I'm sure the neighbors are like, the Gauger's got a new lifestyle out there with the wrangling the snowman.
Yeah, maybe it's time for him to get back to work and not so much snowman activity.
We've had a lot of great discussions. And, over his years and years of HR, he's had quite a path, and where it's led to him, finishing up with the company over 13 years in HR. It's amazing where he got started. A little known fact, my dad actually was a bodyguard for Muhammad Ali.
Oh, wow.
He started in security for Ford Motor Company, and one of his first years being a security guard at Ford Motor Company, he was tasked to be the security detail for Muhammad Ali when he would come into town. So he was actually his driver and his security detail for about a week when he was there in Detroit. Wow.
Well, if you're the bodyguard for Muhammad Ali, I definitely don't want to make your dad mad on Friday, so I'll try not to get on his bad side.
My dad, he's a teddy bear.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking with him and looking forward to talking to you tonight. So as you know on this podcast from having listened to it, thank you for being one of our early listeners. We talk about your career path, the organization you work for, and then any projects that are of interest to you. And you obviously have a variety of interests, so I'm eager to hear about that. But let's start with the career path question. You and I don't know if we met when you were at Purdue Fort Wayne or if it was after that, but you have an interesting path because you work in marketing with a focus on social media, but that's not where your story starts. So tell us a little bit about where the story begins, what you were doing, and how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, so the path was pretty interesting on how it started to where I am now. So I began at Purdue Fort Wayne as a healthcare administration major. Prior to actually that, I studied public management, and I wanted to pursue a career in the public sector, and then I switched it to healthcare administration. And then throughout college, I started to become more and more inclined to the fact of marketing and communication. So I told myself, I was like, how great would that be to be able to do something in healthcare marketing and communication? And then I started to get more and more to that general idea of marketing communication. So I started to do internships with the university. I started doing volunteering with marketing communication. I even started taking some elective courses that were with regards to media and culture, interpersonal communications, and other courses that would help me improve my marketing communication skills. So when I had graduated, I had started at a social media startup company here locally, and I believe we might have known each other going back to how we met. It was interesting. I think we might have met each other virtually, maybe during the time I was a student at Purdue Fort Wayne.
So I tell other people this story all the time. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I remember when you started to sort of emerge in the professional world in Fort Wayne. Originally, I was like, who is this guy? I'm like, and why does he keep stepping on my toes?
Good.
I'm like,
good. I'm actually glad to hear that, because I'm hoping that the stories that I did step on your toes are positive.
Well, it was like, I was like, I'm supposed to be one of the social media people. Who is this whippersnapper who thinks he's the social media guy? And then everything changed when you started liking and commenting on my stuff. I was like, this guy isn't all that bad. He seems like a nice guy. And then we went to lunch, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, so it's been an amazing path, and to be able to start in a career right out of college, with a career when I went into college I never thought I would land into.
So what was your original idea? Why, I think you said, was it public service, public management, and then healthcare administration? Where were you thinking you were headed from there?
Well, the biggest part about it was I loved communicating with the public, and I wanted to pursue a role that involved something, whether it be community outreach, whether it be working for a bureau where I was able to help out the community in some shape or form. But at the same time, one of the passions that stayed with me from the beginning of college until now especially is just maintaining the common good and really helping people find opportunities wherever they may be in life. So the idea of beginning in it was the Department of Public Policy. It actually covered public management as well as healthcare administration. So I will tell you that the transferring of the programs was not too foggy. It was actually a pretty clean line of sight.
Yep.
I was actually contemplating on switching to a marketing major, but I decided to stick with the one I was in because I really enjoyed parts of it still. And I did, I always tell people I took myself outside the box and said, although this is the degree I'm going to result in once I graduate, I still was doing things like volunteering in the community, which I credit to a lot of the things that I've been involved with over these years. And I've actually had past and current coworkers that we've crossed paths in some shape or form in volunteering. I also did an internship with the university for 2 years, and it was an unpaid internship, but it was some of the greatest training I've ever received.
And what were you doing in that position?
I was actually the Twitter customer service manager for IPFW.
Oh, wow.
Which was an amazing niche role, I would say, especially with Twitter being such a microblog and being able to communicate, and also being sometimes the first point of communication. There was a time when actually there was a large server outage that affected a lot of the communications channels for IPFW, and the only ones that were really standing strong and were availability were social media. So when people really have something they want to share or communicate with the college, sometimes it rightfully is directly to something like Twitter, because it's such a direct channel to get a hold of. Twitter is an amazing one because you can get a hold several organizations direct. There's really no press 1 for this, press 2 for this. It's a direct tweet to that organization. So I had dealt with that overnight.
Did you have any prior experience in using social media on behalf of a brand before that?
No, actually, it was throughout college. I had participated in some organizations where I had help out. I had help with their communication strategies. There was a program I was kind of one of the beginners in. It was a student-to-student mentoring program where we would have these caseloads, and I actually had about over 200 students that I had worked with the College of Education and Public Policy. It was a program called Don to Don. It was Mastodon to Mastodon, so student-to-student peer connection, and I actually had helped them with their digital channels. So otherwise, managing a brand, it was kind of it was a learning experience, and it was awesome because the role had kind of developed more and more and had more and more responsibilities on my side, and I began. My official role was called social media assistant. I had also helped out not only on Twitter as a customer service manager, but I would also help research best tactics. I would help out with any other miscellaneous tasks. I also helped start a Instagram takeover account called Inside IPFW, which was a completely student-run channel where we would get students who would apply to be a part of this program, and then we would distribute them different time periods when they would take over. And what that did was it really brought the student on a ground level, and was able to show everyone what they do in a daily life, as long as it abided by the university's policies. It was fair game. So we had amazing students that were exchange students. There were students in multiple different programs, and students that showed us what they do on campus with programs and university housing. So it was really awesome to be able to see that directly and to manage something like that. But that was just, a great piece of the puzzle that really helped me really develop my ideologies and my role as a aspiring marketer.
Yeah, so some hands-on experience, and then so you graduate with a degree in healthcare administration.
Yes.
And is your first job out of college with the agency, the marketing agency that you mentioned previously?
Yes.
Okay. So you start pretty much right after graduation.
So, right. Actually, about 2 months after graduating college, I started at a startup called Cycle and Social, which we actually had began in a lower level basement of a office park. And we, over about a year and a half, we moved over to Main Street. So it was really an awesome experience. And I really got deep into the world of social media through that. I had so many different amazing people I worked with. And, working with the startup, it was just, it was awesome to see all the different experiences and to have these amazing people to work with as well.
Yeah, and then we recruited you over here to Asher Agency, which was partly my doing.
Yes.
And here you were running social media for several clients.
Yes.
And now at Elevatus, tell us a little bit about what that role entails. What are you doing? Because it's obviously a different animal. You're working for a marketing agency, another marketing agency, and now Elevatus architecture firm. And tell us what you're doing there and how it's consistent with what you've done and how it's different.
Yeah, so this is kind of a new experience for me being outside the marketing agency world, and it has been incredibly successful and gratifying on my side. I've loved being able to experience it from in an internal agency type of structure. Being at a marketing agency, it was great, and it was always. Every day was different, but even on the other side too, it's always different, and it's great.
So let me ask you a couple questions, and we'll get into Elevatus in just a minute. But I'm trying to build a bridge between working with a team of people who just do marketing. Now you're with a team that primarily, people who are working in architecture and planning. So are you a department of one? Are there other people who do marketing for Elevatus?
Yeah, so we are still actually a fairly small company. I believe we have a team of about 28.
Okay.
And our work goes internationally. But my team specifically, we have about 3 to 4 people, typically 3 people, including myself, but sometimes 4. The company, as far as what I do, is a marketing communications specialist. My work includes enhancing the brand through our communications platforms, developing proposals to media agencies to help boost our editorial coverage, managing our website, a lot of content management. With working in architecture, engineering, construction, there's a lot of digital assets to work with, especially these days. We deal with so many renderings and different types of projects with video and a lot of photography and with marketing, working in an agency. A lot of times what you do is you go to a project, you go to a company, you take photos, and it's the product as is. For architecture, you're seeing phase after phase after phase after phase. That is actually a really cool opportunity I have as I manage our site cameras. So I'm able to see our projects daily in real time, seeing where they're at. And it's just an amazing opportunity to have to see these projects from paper and from digitally on a computer to real life and people occupying them and seeing how their emotions are impacted by it and all the amazing differences it's making. Yeah,
I just saw, and we'll get into Elevatus in just a second. I want to go back to a couple things on your path, but the other night I saw the video. There was a rendering of the Zollner building that's going to be constructed in Indiana Tech, and one of the things that struck me is that it's a 4-year project, so it's going to take some time in 3 phases. But being able to visualize that with the graphics, and I'm old enough to remember a time when the graphics weren't nearly as good. So what kind of role did you play in the development of that video? Were you? I
actually was one of the people who helped put together. It was a fairly large team of people who put their minds together and
Yep.
put their technology together to create that. But my side of it, I actually was on the side of doing the audio.
Okay.
And I actually, when that video was being put together, we had different pieces that we were putting from different departments. We had from, architecture side, interior side, they're all putting together this rendering video
Yeah.
with the walkthrough. It was just so many different people that were
Yeah.
a part of this team that put it together, but we were really happy with the product. And actually the day after we completed it, we had a world premiere. So
Oh, nice.
we said, come to the red carpet and see the world premiere because we want everyone to see it. And
Yeah.
that's really one of our big things at Elevatus is being a small team, especially communication is very, very vital.
Yeah.
And we, with that project, we had so many hands touching that project that we were just so proud of it once it was completed. And we really want to showcase those
Yeah.
achievements. And,
Sure.
So, that's one thing that myself, I've always been a person that really, I love to motivate others through the good that's out there in the world. So
Yep.
with that video, it was just an awesome way to see the future of Indiana Tech. And we've been very fortunate to work with Indiana Tech for the time we have and to see these, incredible innovative structures
Yep.
be designed to help suit their programs of the future.
Yeah, it was really, really impressive, really great stuff.
Thank you.
So another facet of your path I'm interested in, I was talking to someone today, a friend we have in common, and you were referred to as Mr. Fort Wayne. So you grew up in Fort Wayne, you went to Homestead High School, and I can't think of many people who are more passionate about the community they live in anywhere, and certainly in Fort Wayne. What drives that? Why are you so interested and committed to this city, and what makes you as passionate about Fort Wayne as you are?
I think it starts with the people. I'm not much of a world traveler, I would say. I would say I've been across a good portion of the United States, but I will tell you there's something about Fort Wayne that just, it feels different than wherever else I've been. The people truly are passionate about one another. They look out for one another. We have just wonderful hospitality. One of my favorite parts about Fort Wayne, too, is it's a city of discovery. There's so much history here. There's a lot of, you go from every corner. There's so much beautiful architecture. There's a lot of, Thomas Edison lived here for a short time in his life. Just to think about those little things like that. Also, what I love, too, is how we are so equidistant to so many large cities, too. So, a day trip to Indianapolis can happen.
Yep.
An overnight trip to Chicago can happen. You could take the train even. You could take a trip up to Detroit, Cleveland. I love how equidistant it is, but a big part too here is the growth in the social atmosphere as well as, just the environmentally friendly factors. Over the summer, actually, and you probably noticed this too, but I was a frequent trail user, and part of it was your 120 in 2020 was a huge inspirational factor.
Well, thanks for following that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think after a little bit, I started to become I was just this huge trail enthusiast.
Yeah.
I started saying, I love these trails so much. I started taking all different types of trails. I started taking the mountain bike trails over by Franke Park. I started taking trails down in Indianapolis on the Monon. I started finding more trails to hike on foot. But I still, at the same time, was taking the trails via bike, and I was discovering all these new paths. And one in particular that I was so excited to find out about was the one that goes from New Haven to Fort Wayne, east to west. And, I did that one, parked over by Krieger Park, and took it west of downtown, stopped, had lunch in downtown, came back, rode my bike. I was like, you know what, this is an amazing experience because the fall foliage, the people, the wildlife, it was just it was an amazing adventure. But
and that stretch is almost entirely uninterrupted by traffic. There was a friend of mine who's an avid bicyclist, I should say, and he hadn't been on that path, and I told him, I said, that's one of the best bike paths in the city. So I was glad to see you out there because I'm obviously a big fan of trails, and you have quite a megaphone in Fort Wayne, a lot of followers, a lot of people listening to you.
And I like to really embrace the positive things happening in our community because as human beings, we can find negative after negative after negative.
Especially in 2020.
Especially in 2020. The year has been unprecedented, and if you want to find negative negative. It's very easy. It's sometimes positive. You really have to help push that train a little bit stronger. And that's me. I really love about Fort Wayne too, is the support in this town. It's small enough to get involved, but big enough to see the difference.
Yep.
And that's something I've always told people. And they're like, why Fort Wayne? Why are you, why do you want to still stay here? And I'm like, there's just, the list goes on and on, but realistically, to get down to it, this is my home.
Yeah.
I really call it home. And, for someone who was born right outside Detroit, moved here as a kid, and I went from preschool to college within a 15-mile radius.
Wow.
And I will say that if I had to do it all over again, I would do it the exact same way.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it is, I think you're certainly someone who has a big network of people. And one of the things that I moved here, spent about half my life in Massachusetts and then moved here, is how easy it is to make connections. There's not 6 degrees of separation. It's kind of like there's 2, which has some negatives as well as some positives. But for the most part, if you're someone who appreciates building relationships, it's a good place to do it.
It is.
So let's talk a little bit about this organization called Elevatus. I know enough to be dangerous because my son is an architecture student, and Elevatus has been an Asher client, and obviously with both entities working with Indiana Tech. But tell me from your perspective, what does Elevatus do? Why is it different? What's it like working there? All those good things.
It is a innovative firm, and we are an architecture and interiors firm that specializes in community education, government, and justice architecture. Our firm is extremely just connected with the way that we work. We're very close with our clients. We are people who are very, very aware of the adjustments and the developments that are happening in the architecture and interiors industry. Also, we're very, very committed to being centered to the community. So we are always upholding values that are evolving around the community. We're avid volunteers. I think every staff member, has participated in a volunteer event that we've hosted this year. It's amazing to see how many different events we've had volunteering, and to see just the participation that they've had. And we are just committed to our work, especially. Being a small company, we stay in very close contact with one another. We help each other out, and that really reflects on our work that we deliver. We also are a firm that we're actually, we were founded in 1958, originally called Schenkel Schultz. Okay. And back about 5 years ago, we rebranded actually to Elevatus Architecture, and the ownership had changed, where we had brought on some new items to our portfolios from other cities where this company had been too. So it would center then Elevatus in Fort Wayne, where we had some portfolio items that came from other cities as well. So we have actually had a very, very large footprint here in Fort Wayne. And what's amazing about it all is, and I'm sure a lot of my friends in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry can say the same thing, and in marketing as well can say. But when I go by buildings, I go, "We designed that. Yeah. We designed that. We just renovated that. We remodeled that." And kind of like marketing. You go down the road and you're like, "I know that out of home. I know that billboard."
Well, and Elevatus has worked on some high-profile projects. So a lot of points of pride, a lot of stuff that you're glad to call your own. I'm sure
we are. Yeah. We are very, very involved with the local school systems, especially foreign community schools. One in particular, Southside High School, Natatorium, the Historic Electric Works project. We're actually the lead architects on that. Okay. We have also worked on even the building that we're in, the Flagstar Bank building. Oh, really? And which is pretty cool to say. When people walk in the building and go, "We actually worked on this building."
That's cool. Yeah.
So we've had a lot of amazing ones. Indiana Tech is a great one. When you go in those buildings and you're going in the buildings with the people who designed them, it's pretty humbling to say the least. We've worked on Citizen Square. Just so many great facilities to help better life here, not only in Northeast Indiana, but just across. I mean, it's amazing to think that internationally we can work. So it's really awesome to see that.
Yeah. So you're also involved. Elevata's a great company. That's where you spend a lot of your time. But you're involved in a lot of organizations in Fort Wayne. Name a couple, if you wouldn't mind, where you volunteer or you give your time to, because you're about as connected as anyone I've ever met.
Yeah. So one of them that I'm heavily involved in is Big Brothers Big Sisters. That is one that I've loved being a part of. I've been both a mentor one-on-one with a student in the school-based program to also the Real Men Read program. And that is one program that I really, really love doing. And currently in the state it is in, we are actually doing virtual readings. So in the next few months, I'll actually be doing some recordings that students will be able to tune into in the classrooms or at home while they're doing remote learning. There's some other organizations that I really have loved being engaged with. Some include Miss America organization. I've participated in some as a judge, which has been awesome to be a part of. I've also done some work with Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement's a great one to engage with our youth and help empower them for their futures. I also I volunteer with a lot of activity that involves around the Visitors Bureau. I always love being able to promote for different things for them. I volunteer time, just helping promote a lot of their different events and different campaigns that are running. I also actually on the side, I write for Visit Fort Wayne. I'm an insider with Visit Fort Wayne, so I do cover food and brew, lifestyle, a lot of other awesome things within the social atmosphere here in Fort Wayne. So there's just so many different various organizations that I've been involved with over the years, and there's actually one that I helped get going with our company. It was Adopt the Greenway program with the city of Fort Wayne. We actually, and you guys actually had one as well over by
not too long ago. That's right.
So we actually recently just adopted, and it's cool to say we adopted.
Which section did you guys?
So we adopted the Greenway over by Scott, Illinois, to Illinois and Hadley. And it's a great stretch. A lot of development. There's some new communities being built over in that area. Shigs and Pitt. I mean, there's just so many in that straightaway. And we did 2 cleanups this year, and it was just so amazing to go out there and see the grounds and to help clean it up and drive down it afterwards and just be amazed at the difference that we made. But it's been really fun to be able to be a part of Elevata's, especially with the volunteering passions I have, because when I walked in, that was one thing that really gravitated me towards that business was the attitude and the charisma they have towards volunteering. And even our CEO Mike Guloff had helped start Blessings in a Backpack here locally, and we have various other people. My supervisor Corey Dietz is on the Mustard Seed board. We have others who have been very, very involved locally with nonprofits, and I just think nonprofit citizenship. I mean, it's awesome to see that, and I always tell people that just because you're volunteering doesn't mean you have to sacrifice several hours out of your day or your week or out of your schedule from work, but there are so many other ways to go about doing it. And, there's, sometimes it's 1 hour a month. I've had friends who have done, just a couple hours here and there and they have finished. But there's just many different committees I've been involved with. To say a few, the Northeast Indiana, I've actually been a part of the program as a attendee, but at the Innovation Center, I used to go to a thing called Social and Marketing Breakfast. A mentor of mine, Kevin Mullet, actually helped get that program going. That's actually one of the things that really was helping me get my foot further into the industry of marketing and communications. But the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership was one that I was a part of as a Allen County representative, and Friends of the Rivers is one. It's great. It's the canal boats. It helps really bring more attention to the value of our rivers. So there's just many different ones that I've loved being a part of and helping out with. And it's something with volunteering, as I tell people, although it doesn't pay, the payment that comes to your heart there's no dollar sign to that.
Yeah, it's some of the most fulfilling time that I've spent over the years, and encourage people to do it just as you do. So let's talk a little bit, whether it's at Elevatus or some of the organizations that you work with. What are a couple of the projects that are either challenging for you right now, exciting for you right now, keeping you up at night, making you eager to get out of bed in the morning? What are some of the things that are on your mind that other marketers and communicators or volunteers might relate to?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, there are so many different projects that we have out there that are in so many different phases. And I would say, the Electric Works project has been an incredible one to be a part of and to see it. And that is one that I wish I could be there every day. I did take a tour there for the first time recently. I've learned so much about it on the outside, just from so much behind the scenes work that we've done with it, and just learning more about its history and the structural purposes, and just so much about it. Sometimes in architecture, I really wish that instead of sitting at my desk, I was sitting inside these buildings while they were being developed and built, because it's the site cameras, they help with seeing so much of the project, but once the building's closed in, you'd start to see the outside, and you really want to go on the inside. And I'd say one of my things is the Electric Works project. I've been so inspired by it, and I believe it's 1.4 million square feet of property, and to see that, I mean, to be in that, it's just it's so breathtaking. And that's one thing I kind of wish as a marketer, and I love being an internal agency like I am at Elevatus. Sometimes working in agency work, it was difficult because I wish I was inside the doors, and I'm sure as fellow marketers, you can relate. Sometimes I wish I was inside the doors, seeing as it was happening, or seeing it, being there at the nick of time. And that has been something that's been a positive, is being there and having the resources right then and there to help become more and more of a marketable business. Yeah,
I've always said, having worked on both sides, because prior to Asher, I worked on what we call the client side, and the difference is really depth versus breadth. When I worked, for example, I worked at Parkview for 5 years, learned a ton about healthcare, was working obviously on healthcare projects every day, and learned a lot about a very narrow lane of an industry. Then I came to Asher, and if you're bored with what you're working on, turn to the left, because here's a completely different industry, a completely different challenge. You get a wide swath of knowledge about different industries and different clients, but it's really hard to go deep into any one of them. I'm fortunate that I do a lot of work in higher ed, so I get some depth there, but you're right. It's a different flavor when you're working on the same, in the same industry every day. You just get a depth that you can't touch otherwise.
Yeah, and I'll tell you too. It's amazing. In this year, if there's any silver linings to it all, it's just the communication and how important it is more than ever. Utilizing a platform like social media, it's been able to help us keep in contact with community members, to help us, with the projects that we have partners on, just to really help maintain that fluid communication line. I think one of the biggest parts about working at Elevatus has been seeing these projects and just that feeling of really just want to get inside that facility, but having to wait a little bit. If I do go, making sure that I have all my PPE, that all ready, helmet, glasses, steel-toe boots, vest, which has actually been a thrill, because I will tell you a really amazing story about how life really has its ways of connecting. Is I grew up in love with construction. I actually, for many birthdays, I had asked for die-cast model construction vehicles, but at the same time, I had asked for VHS tapes of construction sites. And no joke, like someone would watch an aquarium, I would watch these. I would just stare in awe and just watch these construction vehicles move dirt and all these excavation procedures, and I just loved it. And I'm like, you know what? This is really cool how life really has its connections. Is where I'm going to these construction sites. I'm like, Brett, I grew up watching these vehicles, and here I am, standing next to the guys that are controlling them, and the superintendents that are watching these, helping watch these guys, watch these sites. So I just think it's been really an amazing experience. It's been a new experience that I've been able to apply my marketing principles to, and I've been very fortunate that working there, they've been very open to applying these practices that I've used in the agency level to take it now to the client side work. So it's been awesome to stretch my capabilities with collateral. I've been really been able to help out with our creative side too, with just developing more of our brochures, cut sheets, different types of guides for our projects, and with the digital shift especially, it's been cool to be able to introduce them to new tools that have helped me streamline my services. So it's really it's an amazing place that has really opened for innovation.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like with a project like Electric Works, it brings together not just your professional, sort of priorities, but also your interest in helping the community develop and seeing Fort Wayne grow. So that's great.
It's been really great to be able to see that tie in with the community and that project itself.
Yeah. So I'm going to move to, we do at the end of this podcast, we do 3 quick hits, and they're kind of similar to the questions I asked, but more concise. It's like the speed round of the show, if you will. So when it comes to career path, I know you have the opportunity to connect with people who are a little younger than you, who might be going through a similar type of, evolution where maybe they started in one major and they're thinking about going a different career path, or they're trying to figure out, what am I going to do when I finish college? What's your one best piece of career advice if you were talking to someone who's trying to figure out, and it could be someone younger who's in college, could be someone older who's contemplating a career change. What do you think is most important when it comes to building a career path?
Don't settle. I think that that is something that I've lived, and told myself is, Brett, I've worked in agency work for years and years, and right out of college as a new person to the quote unquote real world. And I said to myself, don't settle. Nothing is forever in my mind. And I take it every day carefully, and I learn from my mistakes, and I apply them to my future experiences. And I always tell people, that's a big part of me is my mantra is don't settle. I've had friends who have completely shifted where they want to be because they're just not, they're not happy, or they see it as, an opportunity for growth, or they see it as a new discovery. I mean, just like I was telling you earlier, I've never have taken my bike on further paths than I have than this year. I mean, this past year I've quadrupled what any other year I've done in mileage. So I just tell people is don't feel that what you're doing right now has to define the rest of your life. Just like when I told myself in college that, I'm majoring in this, does that mean I have to be in this? And I tell people, you don't always have to stay exactly where you're at. You can always shift. You can make new changes. Now, it might take steps. I will tell you myself, it wasn't an overnight sensation where I went to college, graduated, and fell into marketing. Sure. It wasn't that. There was so many different playing factors. And, there was trial and error because I was a person that was new, and being anything as a beginner, you have to understand that trial and error is all a part of the growth process. And I tell people all the time that people always say, how do you know so many people? How do you, all that stuff? And I always tell people, sometimes it takes getting out of your comfort zone. I was a student at Homestead growing up, just like your son. And it was senior year of high school. And I remember like it was yesterday that I was standing there. I was like, maybe I'll go out of town and go to school. Just get out. Just get out. And I kept telling myself, I was like, why am I just saying get out? What is it that I can fix here? And I can keep myself here. And I had the passion in my heart to help make a difference in the community. And I was like, I don't feel that I have to leave to make that difference. And if I want to get closer to the Fort Wayne community, why should I leave? What is it? All it's going to do is geographically space me further, and I might miss opportunities. And I told myself, I'm going to stay here for college for 4 years, and I'm going to make a difference here in this community because that's what I've been wanting to do all along. So decided to do that, and I did it, to
Yeah.
say the least. I did it. I continue to do it. I continue to find ways to connect myself, but also to connect others, which is one of my favorite things to do. And one of my favorite questions to be asked is, Brett, how can I get more involved with my community? How can I wake up in the morning and feel a sense of belongingness and community in my heart? And I don't have a magic silver bullet,
Sure.
but I will tell you, I have suggestions I'd be happy to provide you. I have organizations that I feel that I could send you to that could be
Yep.
an aggregator of other organizations that might fall under your, where you want to identify with.
Yep.
So, that's one thing I tell people is you don't have to settle. You don't
Yep.
have to feel that just, it's an A to B situation. It can be multiple different variables. And I mean, life is anything but normal, I feel like,
Well, and it sounds like don't settle, but also, don't be afraid to pursue your own path, because just because something's right for someone else doesn't mean it's right for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time is that we are all a single copy of one another, and to relive a copy of someone else, it's not you. It's a duplication of them, and realistically, it's not exactly them. It's a copy. It's a version 2.
Yeah.
So why play the part of someone else when you can play the version 1 of yourself?
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time that I never knew 10 years ago that I would be here in Fort Wayne. I thought I was going to be somewhere else. I mean,
Sure.
10 years ago, if I go back to that, I think my goal was, no joke, I think one of my goals was to be living out on a beach as a stockbroker. And I remember this in high school very well, because we actually, I believe I found a career path plan that I wanted to do. And I think it was that where I saw myself in 10 years, and it was right around this time period, that I saw myself as a stockbroker living on a beach.
Okay. All right.
And I was like, I accept myself for who I am today, and I'm more than happy to be in Fort Wayne working for Elevatus Architecture.
Yeah, well, great. So if somebody stopped you on the street and you had, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, doesn't have to be exactly that.
Sure, yeah.
How would you describe, and you can pick any organization you're affiliated with, Elevatus or anyone else, how would you describe that organization?
I would say that my name is Brett Gauger, and I'm a marketing communications specialist from Elevatus Architecture. We are an architecture firm that has had a long history here in Fort Wayne, and we are a company that is there for the people. And we are a company that develops and designs to help evoke positive emotion. We have a long history in the role of education, community, government, and justice architecture, with not only architecture but interior design. And we're a company that is we're value centered. We really value connection, and we value community. And I would say I'd be happy to talk to you more and say, hey, what are you doing for lunch?
Yeah, so that's a way of getting beyond the 90 seconds.
Maybe I would take them maybe around the corner to Coney Island to give if they're not from Fort Wayne.
Or to Casa, because I know you're a big Casa fan.
Yeah, Pasa con Verdura.
So last question, we talked about some of the projects that you're passionate about, some of the stuff that you're working on and that inspires you. It's a challenging time, and there's people who are probably, who might be generally optimistic, but who are having a difficult time right now because marketing resources are hard to come by right now, and there's a lot of changes going on in the way consumers are interacting with brands. What's your best piece of advice to kind of get people through the long haul and to see them through to maybe better days?
Absolutely, that's a great question, and that is something I've worked on with myself as well. This year has been a year that none of us would wish on our worst enemy, and I think that one big part of it is meditation. And I know there are so many different tools out there to meditate. And I always tell people that meditation doesn't have to be where you're in complete silence and in the dark. It could be doing something that you love doing. And sometimes it takes unplugging. As someone who's worked in digital for so many years, one of my favorite things to do is actually putting my phone on airplane mode and taking a hike, or going on a bike ride, or just listening to music, or pulling out a book instead of an audiobook or an ebook. Pulling out an actual physical paper book. I tell people all the time too that there are a lot of resources out there that can really help you just have, bring yourself some relaxation.
Yeah.
And I tell people that, right now it's what's happening is there's just so many different noises that it's exhausting. Especially people, like myself, like marketers. I mean, we're working to help coach people through some of these, so many things. And it's just, there's so much, it's like drinking through a fire hose sometimes, because it's one thing after another. And there are so many different industries right now that are struggling in many different shapes and forms. And if you could provide some positive light to anything you can do right now, it will help. It will help. Any small little deed will help. And I tell, I've told people that it doesn't have to be something even physical. If you feel that you don't want to go out and do that volunteering, there are so many different ways digitally to volunteer. NeighborLink, they're an awesome local nonprofit. One thing I really love about them, there's many different things. Andrew over there has done stunning things. But they actually have even just support prayer section on their volunteering portal. And I think that's just so amazing that, there are different things where you can help someone maybe move an old fridge out of their house. And there are other things even that you can have where you can just talk to someone on the phone. Or there's someone that just wants to talk to someone. And I think that right now, it's that moral support we need. We need to have that empathy. And brands, especially when they're communicating, understanding empathy. At the same time, too, I have a lot of fellow friends who are social media managers, and people need to understand behind those brands are people. It's not most of 99.9% of the time, those posts are not being made by robots. They're made by people, or they're made by multiple people, different types of concentrations of people, different types of, creative teams, strategists, advertisers. Just there's so many different pieces to the managing of this content. I tell people just have extra empathy, give people space, and most importantly, give yourself some space. There's so much out there to take in. It's better off for right now just learn more about yourself. Find a new passion. Like I was telling you before we got on here, I've been just finding some new hobbies and interests. Cooking has been one that I'm like, the world of YouTube has been awesome. I've been able to find some things. Now, I will tell you that some things don't always come out exactly the way they look. So I've learned that through sight as well as through taste testing.
Little humility goes a long way.
But, when you're trying out new things, sometimes you need to have a little laugh to yourself.
Yeah, well, I really like the advice about, really sort of task switching, especially for people. I know you know a lot of people, as do I, who work in social media. And somebody asked me a similar question the other day, and I said, my best piece of advice for people who work in social media is take a lot of opportunities to get away from social media. And that's where you're going to have conversations with people who aren't immersed in that world, who will give you different perspectives. And I'm a firm believer that our best ideas come when we stop grinding on a project and we task switch and our minds go away from it. I was changing light bulbs the other day, and I was like, this is awesome because there's only one right answer. Either the bulb goes on or it doesn't.
Bulb's on, bulb's off.
As opposed to the work we do where there's multiple right answers.
No, I think that right now, especially is an important time for us to discover, and that might be learning a new skill. It might be learning ways on how you can serve your neighborhood in times like these. It might be supporting those small businesses that are struggling so badly right now. It might just be reconnecting with an old friend. It might be checking on an elderly neighbor. There's just so many new things that we can add to our lives that will help us and not necessarily really make us feel overwhelmed. It will provide more enrichment than it will the payment of your time. I just think that right now, focusing in on what matters most is priority one, and to share the joy in this world and to help people find that light at the end of the tunnel is crucial. So my hope is that the silver lining in all of this is how we can learn new ways to find love, to seek out resources, to help people, make their lives a little bit easier. There's so many new things that I think right now that the pandemic has caused, and unfortunately there's a lot of negatives, but also there are some silver linings to it. I mean, there's just some ways that I have discovered myself being, alone and being separated from so many people, I've found new skills that I can apply to my professional portfolio. So I think that with this situation, there are a lot of, unfortunately, there are a lot of negatives, but at the same time, some positives could come from it if you see it that way.
Sure. Well, Brett Gauger, thanks for being with us. And when the weather warms up and when we're in a little bit more normalcy, maybe we can play some tennis or go for a bike ride on the trails and discover some new trails.
I am all for that. It'll be a hit.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here, and thanks everyone for listening. Again, this is the Asher Marketing Podcast. Thanks for being part of it, and we hope to hear from you and see you next time. Have a great week.